No, we ready. Look. Okay.
Hey.
Go all out.
Yeah, hey.
First? Yeah.
I'm all in the background. Look who I'm around when I'm gonna be down. All right. Chef J is a living legend, in case y'all don't know. Does everyone know Chef J? They say that there are 3 levels of conversation. Level 1 is when people talk about other people. Level 2 is when people talk about events. There's nothing wrong with either of those, but this is Level 3 Studio. Level 3 is when people talk about ideas and what is possible. Welcome to Level 3 Studio, AKA Chef J's Kitchen, AKA the Innovator's Oasis, where we feed your body, feed your mind, without a doubt, feed your soul. Let's take a toast.
Salud!
Cheers. Damn it! Does everyone have a drink? Where are your drinks? I said this like 5 times.
I need the extra box.
Bring the box in. She got the bottle. Look, all right, cheers. The lid's on it. The lid is, God damn. The lid is on.
All right. There's got to be a score.
What have you tried to achieve specifically, and how have you gone about achieving it?
In regards to transit or just in life in general?
Well, you said you wake up and you try to achieve throughout the day, or whatever you set out to achieve, and how that day plays into it.
And people have a to-do list, right? And really, a lot of times, their to-do list are just mundane tasks. Get dressed, get to work, check in. And it's like, what are you trying to get done? When you go to bed and say, okay, did I earn my sleep tonight? Did I really move the needle for what I was trying to get done? Did I meet with people that could help me creatively finance public transit? Did I meet with VCs that can help us do what we call economic development? Did I mentor someone? Did I make someone's life better because I was involved to help them move forward as well? So I try to go from like the Franklin Covey to-do list and really say, okay, what I want to get done.
Yeah.
That because you can confuse activity for accomplishment.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people love to say, "Wait, man, how you doing? I'm just so busy." And I'm like, I'm getting stuff done.
Busy and productive.
I'm getting stuff done. I'm not busy. I'm getting things done.
Mm-hmm. Let's open that one up there. Productivity. Like, how do you all know? What are the indicators for you that you're being productive? That you're moving the needle on things you care most about?
I don't think you can measure until later, right? And so for me, every day is an opportunity to do a little bit more. And I know that some days I don't feel as productive as others, but I know that if I keep pushing forward, then you could add them up. So I was at a breakfast this morning, and I talked to one of my guys. He's one of my Centurion guys, and I talked to him about where I work now, and he asked how many hours I work and all these things, and I said, well, I work remotely and I work this many hours, and I tried to explain to him I kind of do, what I want to do in this space. He was like, well, how do you do that? And I was like, well, you do really good work for a really long time. And then you build up a reputation for that, and then you walk in the door and you have that cachet of this guy gets stuff done.
Knows how to execute. Yeah.
So I don't have to, I demonstrated
prove
long enough in that space that people kind of know.
Man, that idea of like earn your stripes, prove your worth. Because to some degree, I've seen it take people down that they never give themselves permission to do the things, or they're always timid or waiting for someone else to give them the permission because of this belief you have to earn your stripes. But to some degree, you do, So like, how do you find that balance between like I've kind of earned my stripes and paid my dues versus like I'm gonna go out there and do it the way I know how to do it because I know I'll get it done?
So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey, and it's relevant to the question you've proposed to us. I remember my first job at K-State, we had to turn in our calendars to our supervisor 2 weeks in advance, and every minute of every day had to be accounted for on that calendar from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. She could call you up.
2 weeks before.
2 weeks before.
So you knew what you were going to do the next 2 weeks, every minute of every day?
Yeah, and quite frankly, it pissed me off, right? Because I felt like I had done a lot. I'd accomplished a lot, a couple degrees under my belt by that point. I'd proven that I do good work and that I should be trusted. But apparently some people before me that had that position had broken that trust. And so I'm paying for the sins of the father in a lot of ways,
happens,
right?
7 generations.
Right, exactly. So all that to say, at the time, I was very upset about that. But what it taught me was a valuable lesson in backwards planning. So I learned how to like forecast my journey 2 weeks out and still account for space for unanticipated things to come up and for me to be able to address those, accordingly. But anyway, all that to say is that I went from a space of every day had to be documented, on point, know exactly where I'm at, micromanaged to the extreme, to now I've done enough good work to where, to Gerron's point, where people know that I get things done and that I know how to do that efficiently now. I don't need as many hours in the day to get a task done as most people do. To Frank's point, he can get done at 3 o'clock and he's killed it. And my goal is to be done at 2:59, just to be better than Frank, right? So
just
right,
show up a minute
got
early.
him by a minute, got him. Right.
Yeah.
But all this is just to echo of the points that they've made, that when you put in the work and you have a pattern and you've created a paradigm of excellence, that people trust that you're going to come through and they don't need to micromanage you, and you can do things that work best with your lifestyle and you could be more efficient that way.
Yeah. For you to give me grace as I try to ask this, just kind of straightforward, but validation, right? Validation, the idea of validation has come up a lot on this episode with different people, and it's something that has either been a really big poison or a really big motivator. Has validation played a role in either of your lives, and how have you went about it in terms of either in the road of achieving or just personal development?
So for me, validation, I always look for validation from my biggest influence, which are my parents, primarily my father. Although I may not tell him things, I always look for him to be proud of what I'm doing without actually putting it in his face. So he might find out word of mouth or things like that. But, I had a, she's not a mentee, but I had someone tell me when I was speaking one day in front of a bunch of elders in the Urban Summit group, she was like, you really command the room and they really respect you. And I was like, yeah, I had to bust my ass to gain that respect. I didn't use my father, the fact that my father was someone who was already working in the community and using his name. I made a name for myself, and I busted my ass and did things and worked hard and never used him or leaned on him to get anything done. And when I could stand in front of that room and say what I wanted to say and say how I felt about things, that validated to me that I had gained that respect. Respect and honor me. That's how I was raised. I came up and I went through a rites of passage and everything, and Falami means respect and honor me. And so I definitely make sure that happens.
Will you share that? Like a legit rites of passage?
Yeah, like a legit rites of
what
passage. When I was younger, so I'm the only person that in my family that was born in Kansas City. Both my parents were from Los Angeles. My mother, if you see her, she's straight out of Compton, but she doesn't look like it. But don't test her, because Compton will come out. She looked nice, but Compton will come out. When they came to Kansas City, like most young Black people that come to Kansas City via work, they were very involved in different movements and things. My father is the chair for the Black United Front here in Kansas City. And so through that group, they created a rites of passage, and they used to meet down north was what we say in Kansas City, down north in Wayne Minor. And we used to meet in this building, and we would meet with kids from the projects and everything. And every Saturday we would meet, and you had different variations of groups based on age, and you would go through these different things. And then there's a point, maybe about 14 or so, we went through a rites of passage. And it was me and 2 other young women that I went through a rites of passage, which unfortunately one is not with us today. She committed suicide through the troubles of her life, and we weren't in touch for me to try to, prevent that. But I'm still in touch with, the other person that I went through the rites of passage, which were like sisters, and we had, women elders around us that taught us different things. I was raised in a very conscious household. I know who I am. I know where I'm from. I know my history. I know enough to have pride in myself. I say, to give me a foundation. I was fortunate enough with my family to have actually gone to West Africa and to see the motherland and as a young child stand in the doorway of no return and feel it. You know what I'm saying? So, when you have that invested in you, when you have people invested in you that way, we had a whole ceremony about it. We had names. I had a naming ceremony. My name was Zaida, which means abundance. And, you add that to your name and you take that and you kind of carry it with you. Zaida. I see you.
Abundance.
Yeah, abundance,
Backwards,
abundance. Yeah, that's the only word that I could think to describe me. So Zaida was my rites of passage name, and I went through rites of passage like 14, 15 years old, and that's kind of carried with me since then. But that process has taught me to, through that process, I learned to respect my elders. I learned to trust the people around me. I learned to trust my community and help build people within my community and learn more about myself. And a lot of other young people got to be a part of it as well.
Hey everybody, Adrienne Haynes with Seed Law, Team Seed.
Hey, shout them out. Any other
Yeah,
shout
gotta
out?
do it.
Shout out, do a
At
shout
Law
out.
for Innovators. Hit your girl up.
She got the.
Right? So the concept of validation keeps coming up though, right?
Can we edit like a crown in here and like?
Don't do that. But get my angle right if you're gonna do it.
But don't sacrifice my angle.
I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? Sorry.
Don't do me like this.
Validation is interesting because when I hear it, my first thought is comparison is the thief of joy. I think when we talk about validation, we're marking ourselves based on other people's benchmarks. And that always, that's just never been the way that I think. And so while I appreciate the awards, I think it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. So when nobody was following and no one cared at all, Nia and I were on. Hey, they weren't. They weren't.
3 times this week.
This week.
Working on your legs.
Or they didn't care that you were in the gym, and they were like, "How come you're not over here? And why are you still at the gym?" Right. So we were talking in that same conversation. I'm governed by my life mission, first and foremost, which is to aid in the creation of sustainable business and transferable wealth for people who look like us, people from traditionally underestimated communities. So when I think about validation, I'm checking all of my activities, my attitude, my hopes, my desires, my goals against that life mission. And that's how I figure my own validation. Am I achieving my goals? Because I don't remember where I got this quote, but it talked about being first qualified by God or whoever you believe in, and then qualified by man. So qualification by man worries me because they can build you up and then just as quickly tear you down. Yeah. So if you're looking at other people to validate whether or not you're on the right path, to me, that's an internal reflection anyway. Yeah, because every day, I'm checking, is this webinar, does this lead to the creation of sustainable business and transferable wealth for people who look like me? I said yes, because this is a conversation about sustainable innovation. It's supporting you and your mission. I'm surrounded by people who think the same way and challenge me in a different way. And so my thoughts on validation are a little bit different, but I think that there's still equal value being validated by your community and internally, but that internal one can't be one that we forget.
It's got to come first.
Yeah.
Who I serve is my community. I can't do what I do if my community is not behind me, if they don't trust me, if I don't back me, if I'm not dependable, if I'm not someone they believe in, if I'm not someone they believe is passionate about them. And everything I do is in representation of that. And beyond my community, my people. You know what I'm saying? I have a hard conversation with myself about, am I a feminist? Am I this? Am I that? And I had to come to the conclusion, I can't yet be a feminist because I'm a black woman and I am black first. So I have to look out for those who are like me because we are so far behind. Unless I help pull us back up, who am I to leave my son behind? Who am I to leave my father behind? So that debate is what I have all the time. But validation, first for me, comes within God, and then, everything else from there. The people that I trust around me.
Let's talk about strategy, because something that, and Frank, we were just starting to get into this early on over there, but the idea of working to, and I'm not going to articulate this eloquently because I'm just going to talk with where my mind's at right now, but essentially working with a system to grow in that system or working against that system. We'll just say more for the idea of liberation, but at the same time, the desire of growth and everything that comes along with that. What are your strategies? What are you working on? Are you working? Talk to us, Frank.
I want the short.
Are you? Are you?
Pre-production.
The Frank for the.
Are you working on? Are you working on the system, or are you working in the system?
You know, I take the view that I can do more on the inside than the outside. That in itself has its challenges. That's where your mentors, you come and play if you have a faith, because doing that you have to tend to bite your tongue. You know, I tease Gerron about, you know, if we think the same, my packaging is just better.
Took a little bit more time on the graphic design.
His packaging is a suit and a tie and
Took
patience.
took a little more time.
And mine is not
Put
patience.
that
down.
down.
I'll give you an example. When I came to the KCHA 2 years ago, we had no minority vendors, very few, and for me to go when 6% of our riders are black, 80% of our employees are black, $100 million budget, we have no minority vendors. So for me, I don't have a lot of money, but what I got a good line of shit, and I can get people to do what I want them to do, and get them to do it for me in a way and I mean, my thing is I don't approach doing the right thing by doing the right thing, because I don't think it's a moral question. I think it's really about what's in for that person that you want them to do for you. So my thing is, we hire these minority vendors, we keep Urban Summit from marching down the hallway with Reverend Tendo like they did last December, ready to burn down the ATA. Well, I mean, really, it's just like, I'm not going to impute you on a moral, because if I have to impute on a moral code, I've lost already. Because you should want to do it as the right thing to do, but let's be real, it ain't happening.
Enlightened self-interest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my job is, you know, we talk about African tradition. I'm the trickster. Okay. I come in there, you think I'm just messing around and paying attention. Once all said and done, you've done what I wanted, and you're like happy to do it. So that's my approach to that.
How about the rest of you? Do you, Gerron, are you? Is that something you're conscious about in your day to day of working on versus in, or you know, how do you go about
it? Yes.
How does the country make money?
Yes. The answer is yes. You know, I manage myself for the moment, right? And so what that means is I gauge where I am in the space. I gauge my audience. I gauge what I'm trying to get done, and whatever path is necessary to achieve what I want to do, that's where I'll take it. Now, Frank and Adam know me from an organization where I probably demonstrate less patience than I do if a paycheck were on the line, right? But I paid for it, you know, out of my pocket, right? And I'm trying to, and my goal is to leave the city better, you know, when I leave than I found it, right? And so when my time and attention and I put the dollars behind it to do that, and I'm having a conversation with you about something that you say you want to progress on, and then I see you doze, right? Or I see you contradict yourself.
Has it been intentional though? Like, in your experiences, has leaning from the very thing that brought us together, have those people in your reflections done it intentionally, or just you just have different visions about how it's accomplished?
Man, listen, man. How long is this thing going?
Listen, we got some time.
It's intentional. It's very much intentional. It's all intentional. I don't have a lot of patience for not, and you telling me it's not, because I can ask the right series of questions to get that out of you, to let you tell me that it's intentional.
To at least put the truth on the table.
So I don't have patience for people that don't say it's intentional. So at some point in talking to me, you're gonna have to reckon with your reality. Man, it's a ballet what we do. If you look at everybody around this table, this is a ballet that we're doing every single day.
You don't want to do the mistake we made in the past with, you know, Booker T. Washington and Du Bois. You know, one had to be chosen over the other. You know, there's different rules each game that we play. So Adrienne plays a different set of rules. Adam plays a different set of rules. I play a different set of rules. It's just the rules of the game.
If we're doing our ballet, I write my own choreography. I mean, if you don't like this dance, I'll just dance on another stage. So even just thinking through the hierarchy of who's in charge, how I'm supposed to, I don't know. I'm like truly, I think, an entrepreneur in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Hey, I say, hey, if you don't stand for something, something, yeah, surely you would die for nothing, I say. Plus vibes only. It's just my version of you. Everybody says it, positive vibes only, good vibes. It's very cool to say vibes these days, and that's fine. So I just like to take everything that's normal and kind of put my spin on it. At the conclusion, the revolution will not be televised. We complicit slaves in this worldwide enterprise, living in perpetual timeshares, and we buying lies, which underlines the simplify. In the American nightmare, just killing time. We need to break outside the lines, cause we marginalized by the overtime, keeping us occupied inside our minds, unable to cop out, don't unplug, we catching slugs. The cameras have a million eyes, the people on one accord is strongly ill-advised, cause it's easy to control us when you and I divide. Man, I'm telling you, we gon' have to learn to get along, cause we can't succeed if we keep fighting alone. That's why every day another family's drug call to die, so I can't be silent no money. It's literally in every moment, every situation, every interaction, any action with my people, life, things, celebrities, whoever I interact with, learning how to really find the positive in every moment and like really mean it. I really want everybody I encounter to win. Like, because you not winning doesn't help me. Even if you've done me scandalous, even if you've hurt my feelings, like, you not being successful doesn't help the world that we're in right now. It takes a village to even raise a child. We have children, have things, I have friends. So if you're gonna even be around some of my friends and other people and about other people doing things in the world positively, like, I need you to be a better person, period. So if I put any negative energy on you, how can I truly say you can grow? And like, how can I truly grow? Happening subliminal, but no man, no money shall conquer my spirit, cause it will come and go in a New York minute. While your body alive, your soul must be in it, your mind must be clear, your windows must be tinted. With a drop that's unrelenting, you gotta protect your vision, cause they peering with spies. You keep your enemies close, make your brother realize soon evil will be toast. It's only a matter of time if you keep your heart benevolent and benign. It is all by design. That my next one is create every day. I put it on my Instagram all the time, and some people think I just mean music. It just so happens that I'm a musician. But when I say create every day, it means to really, like, whatever it is you do, create every single day at that craft. So if I'm a musician, every single day I can work towards getting better at this. So one day I'm a producer and I'm on the beat pad and I'm making beats. The next day, man, I don't feel like making beats. I don't have any ideas. But how can I further? Oh, I can play the bass, so I can be a live musician, or I can play the drums, or I can write lyrics, or I can make a flyer. You know, anything that pertains to what it is that's gonna help my craft. I learned if you do something every single day, you really can. You don't realize how much better you got until and then you're like, oh snap, my song was writing this faster. I think this is faster. Oh, I do this. Oh wow, like, oh, I really, dang. And all I did was actually use the time in my days wisely. Something, yeah. Surely you will die for nothing. Whew, testify.
I consider myself a positive disruptor, right? I love, like, the idea of Frank being like, all right, I'm gonna get in and y'all don't even know what my agenda is. And by the time you figure it out, it's too late. And I've convinced you to do what I think is best for my agenda and my goals in a positive way. And I like your idea of, like, making my own stage. We doing ballet and you don't want me to dance on your stage? All right, I'll Misty Copeland and do it on my own stage over here, right? So I'm kind of like a hybrid of those two ideas. And the hill that I'm willing to die on, that rock that I stand on, is being unapologetic about doing what I think needs to be done to get something done for the community that I want to positively impact, and being unabashedly, like, feverishly into that.
What cultivates that, like, that deep belief that is the thing? Like, what fuels that fire?
Probably from my father. I think a lot of us are, probably everybody here is influenced in some way from a parent. My dad he's a hard father. He'll rarely tell you that he's proud of you. And I've grinded my life to make sure that he is proud of me. I know he is, but he doesn't really say it, but I know he is, right? And so I remember the first time I got a job working at the Kauffman Foundation, and that was like the moment where he like sat me down. He's like, I think that's dope. I'm really proud of you. And I was like, now? Oh, really? Bro, I got 2 degrees, a master's degree. I speak Spanish fluently. I'm conversational in Portuguese, and I have a 3.8 GPA. I'm like, I have no debt. This is why you're proud of me? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because Mr. K, that man, and he's very much a cynical person. He doesn't like a lot of people. He's misanthropic almost, right? But Mr. K, and he's very much like he tends to only like all of his friends are black. There's not a lot of white men in his life, and so for him to say that about a white man, I was like, so tell me more. And my dad, when he first had my oldest brother, him and my mom were living in a 1-bedroom apartment, didn't have a lot of money, and he was working for Xerox and selling printers, just hustling. And these printers, it cost a lot of money at that time, and you got to sell like 1 a month just to even like get food on the table. And so he went up to the foundation pretending to have a meeting with Mr. K and didn't have one. And the administrative assistant's like, oh, we don't see you in the book. He's like, check again, being a hustler, just grinding, right? He's like, you must have made a mistake. You should check again. And he kept doing this. And they're about to throw him out. And finally, like serendipitously, Mr. K walks in. And he's like, I don't know the woman's name. Luis, he was on the books. It's my mistake. I should have told you. He's like, come on in with me, sir. Come on in with me. And him and Mr. K just have a conversation for like an hour.
Did your dad really have the meeting?
Yeah. He really had a meeting with this dude and talked for an hour. Didn't even talk about printers at this point. And he's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, so why are you here? He's like, I'm still up here. He's like, oh, you know what? I'll buy 3. That was enough to set my family up for like the next year of like relieving pressure from, what they were doing and making ends meet. And so I was very appreciative of that. And I appreciated his hustle and just being relentless for what he believed in and doing what he needed to do to uplift those around him, being my family in this case. And so I took that and I internalized that, and that's how I live my life.
And Mr. K wasn't taking everybody's meetings.
He was not taking meetings.
He literally was taking like 15-minute meetings, and that was it.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead, do your follow-up.
It's crazy. And so when I wrote that.
You asked me the question.
Yeah, go ahead, get that.
I wanted to answer,
especially if you're marinated on it.
All right, that rock. What is that rock? Me. Man, you can shoot me, persecute me. I'ma still be me. I don't want to use the word unapologetic, but I'm fucking dope. You know. I've been look. I was watching Jessica James, the Incredible Jessica James on Netflix, and that was my line there. I was like, yes. What are you talking about? It's like, just because I'm a unicorn doesn't mean you can use me whenever you want me. You know what I'm saying? So like, like I'm fucking dope, yo.
Can you give me a cup, please? Just one cup? That would be.
you disappeared and the wine disappeared. I'm like, you
And the fruit tray.
Come back to the real. Let's get back to the dope shit.
Okay.
So back to the dopeness.
Yeah, the dopeness that is needed.
Yeah. So, that whole idea of being a unicorn. Growing up, I was very rare. I grew up in a 2-parent household. My parents had master's degree. My father was an entrepreneur. We stayed in the hood. I still stay in the hood, whatever you want to call it. I still stay in my community, and my father ingrained that in me. We have a business in the community. I could literally walk to our office if I wanted to. I can't count that on my hand from anyone around me. My father was an influence on everybody, all the young women around me, even the young men. So I don't take that for granted, not one day. Even though I fought not trying to be like my father, and I'm just like my father,
That's how it turns out.
It don't suck, but it takes a minute. As a young woman,
You gotta let it soak in.
you try so hard. You try so hard. Like, you be somewhere speaking and your mama look at you like, damn, you sound just like your goddamn daddy. Just like your goddamn daddy. Yeah. You your daddy's daughter. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I'm curious. What has been the best part about staying, and what has been the most difficult part about staying?
The best part is being an example to my peers. Being there.
That are in the community?
No, outside. Everybody, people who are there and people who are on the outside. It's hard to stay and fight. It's hard to, our company is right across the street from a liquor store. And on the corner, the crackheads, the hustlers, the prostitutes are at work before I'm at work. I see it every day. We got a trap house right next door every day, but we stay. No matter what happens, we stay. And if we weren't there, we couldn't be the influence in the community. You know, it takes a minute for people to walk through the door and say, what do y'all really do? We do engineering, you know. You come in here, we got civil engineers, we got structural engineers, and my goal and the whole purpose of my father creating that business was because he wanted a space where young black people can actually, you know, build themselves and grow in that field, because in Kansas City, we have some of the highest engineers per capita. I mean, you got just about every engineering firm represented here, just about, if not, you know, all of them. And you have a great talent pool here, but you will run into that space where you'll be in these big firms and you'll hit that ceiling fast. You won't grow, you won't get anywhere. And they got all these little diversity programs just to say I'm doing something, I'm bringing a couple of young people in here, but they're not really doing anything for them. And that space that we have, I'm so proud to say that we are black owned, we are 100% minority or women. Like everybody is of color there, you know, and you won't see it. Any of our peers, you don't see it. You don't see it happen. And it's not that he's not trying to hire anyone white. We have before, but that space was created for that particular purpose. And my job is to continue that. I don't know if I'll be the successor, but I more than likely will be if he doesn't sell it off. But whatever I do, I want to make him proud. Yeah, I want to make him proud in whatever that is. So, but I know a lawyer for you. But you know, hey, I know a bunch of lawyers. I know a bunch of people, but it's like I find myself alone at times. That's the hard part about Stan. You're alone. You are so alone in that fight to really go in for your community. It's like, how can you fight for your community if you're not there? And that's what my father told me. He said, you can't fight if you're not in the fight. You know, you gotta be there, and I gotta be able to see it. I gotta be able to feel it, and that's why I'm so passionate about it every time I enter a room.
Go ahead, Gerron. And I'm curious. In addition to your thought, you nodded when she said, talking about the diversity being a check mark. I'm curious, in the world that you live in professionally, what's up, man?
When I started with this Centurions group, there were no women that looked like these two women right here. And I showed up day one, trying to kick the door down for women that look like them. And I went to the chamber, and they mentioned a pretty powerful dude in this community earlier today who heard an earful from me about women who look like them. I was invited to the Diverse Business Committee of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. And I showed up in there, and the room looked like it was supposed to look. And the newly appointed director of the chamber was in there for his first time and all these things. And I just wanted to move the ball forward. And in that room at that day, there were a bunch of people that were patting themselves on the back for doing great things for diversity, but they weren't the people on the ground. And I saw that firsthand. And so I challenged them, and this is the radio edit, but I challenged them to look at things differently, meaning that you're a room full of executives, but where are the people on the ground? And are you touching those people? And are you in the mailroom? And when I walked around this organization that I was at for 12 years, I could go a whole day, and the only dude I see was a guy delivering mail that looked like me. But this company wins awards for diversity. You know, a challenge is advocating for people that aren't you, right? So I talked about these women that I advocate for. Black women, granted, but remember when I showed up at a certain organization, they weren't there. And they didn't have a voice. And we were talking about poverty in Kansas City, right? And we were talking about economic progress in Kansas City. And they weren't in the room. And I know I can't be the only uncomfortable person there talking about these things. But if I am, then somebody got to catch up.
When you ask the question like what's needed in the early years, for me, I think the most important thing that we need, particularly as Black people, is to know who we are. I grew up in a household, and my father helped push an institution with the African Center of Education to replicate that for other children, and even for my own children, which was heartbreaking to see them take down. These children were crying and fighting for their own education. You don't see that. To teach these kids who they are, because then you instill pride. If you have pride in who you are, the sky's the limit. for anything you want to do, for anybody, no matter what little resources we have. And I learned that lesson just last year in my visit to Cuba. I'm gonna tell you something right now. Everything they tell you about Cuba is an absolute fucking false lie. I have so much respect for Fidel Castro. When a man can sit there and say, I'm going to eradicate literacy in 1 fucking year, and I'm going to use children to do that, with the youngest teacher being 6 years old. And in that, while I'm teaching them literacy, just the basics of ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, I'm going to teach them about their country. And these people now have pride in who they are. Hey, Cubans and Haitians are some of the proudest people you will see in the Caribbean. And living in the Virgin Islands, at that time when I was like 2002, 2003, if I met a Cuban, they escaped. But if you met a Haitian, they were proud and they walked around with their chest out, and they were the most mind-blowing people. You could sit and have a conversation on the side of the road and eat a mango and whatever else we do on a sunny day by the beach. we had some rum punch. We had some rum punch. But Cuba was such an experience for me. I mean, even at a young age, going to West Africa and standing in the door, no return, something very great for me. And traveling as a young child was something very great for me. But as an adult, when I got the opportunity just by chance to see Cuba and to see Cuban people and the pride and the vitality and just the fact that in a place where you got free healthcare, education all the way up to a PhD, and everybody has their basic needs, and people look at them as if they're poor, but like, no, they have their basic needs. And I can go in certain communities and see where there's one whole community where the artist had went through and depicted all of the African religions, Santeria, everything that you would want to know about this community is there, and there's pride and there's celebrations, and there's every Sunday there's a block party, and that's how they attract tourism. They work together. That's what I want to see from our community, because when you have the world, literally the world against you, and you can still thrive, man, that's a lesson to learn. That's so strong. And I asked the question, like, when Fidel Castro died, what happened? Because you got to talk to the locals. You can't talk to people who are there on tours now. So at night, I had to sneak out and go talk to the locals. But look, because you can walk the streets in Cuba at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and be safe. You could be in the hood and be safe. Like, I felt safe. And when I asked him, like, what happened when Fidel Castro died? He said, this whole square was full of people. It was the saddest day ever. We loved him because he fought for us. And when you do that, that's the type of leadership we need. And that's the type of leadership we don't have in our community.
We sit here and don't like what product we get, but we gave away control of education for our own children. Yeah. I mean, come on. If I tell you don't come from nothing, you ain't nothing, you ain't gonna be nothing. What you gonna get? You gonna get kids? They gonna think that way. I mean, I had to deprogram my daughters every day from school, and say, okay, what's on today? Bullshit. So when you educate your children properly, they will rise to the education that they get. But we gave it away. We gave it away. I was responsible for not only were they going to be functional people, were they going to be whole people. I wasn't going to have this confused black child not fitting in, not liking themselves because they don't look like Becky. I wasn't having that. So there were no white dolls. It was black dolls. It was a map. It was a map of Africa. If it was a Bible, it was the Afrocentric version of that Bible. Everybody was black. I was that committed to making sure their sense of self made sense. I was almost to the extreme of it. Even if it upset people, I had to do it to protect my children, protect their mind, because it's so hard out here as it is. And I don't think we value the minds of our children. If we did, we'd let them be educated the way they are, because it's not setting them up for success.
I have a lot of thoughts as I hear the conversation, and I just want to. I moved to Kansas City in 2010. I love this community. It is my adopted hometown. I moved here from Iowa. I was the only black girl in my high school, so I'm just ruminating a lot on just the concepts of identity, the concepts of politicking in Kansas City, and the question I always ask myself is what I was writing down over here.
So we know what you write down.
They fucked up in quotes. They done fucked up.
Oh, it's wrote it in red. She switched the pen color and wrote it in red. Y'all don't see it, but I see it.
Don't be sharing my notes, man. This is work product.
Tell you what I see.
Workshops gonna come at it.
Right. But the question I always ask myself is, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I have to say, like, I'm learning this concept of world building and how just in the movie Minority Report, they built the set before they built the script, and just understanding what it really means when you say, if you build it, they will come. But for me, it also begs the question, are the barriers that we complain about, talk about, strategize around real or artificial? But the pain is real. So as I'm listening, just thinking about the importance of creating our own narrative and the things that we say about ourselves over and over and over, regardless of whether or not that's what we've heard in the past. Like, if our job today is to create a new story, we have to create a new story, like in the way that we talk about ourselves, about the way that we talk and honor our elders.
I'm a mother of 3, 13, 6, and 3 years old. 2 boys and a girl, and my daughter is the one I fear the most. But what I feel like is missing.
How old is she? How old is she?
She's 3. Yeah, girls are different. Girls can get pregnant, you know. But what I see is missing is a prominent black woman and a prominent black family. And no disrespect to anyone who dates outside of race, but I hold it very dear to my heart to see a black man and a black woman, because we don't have that, and it's so necessary. And what I think is missing in our community is the power of the black woman being in a household. Our children aren't educated because we're not there teaching them. I struggle every day as a entrepreneur, working in a family business. Should I be here making a career and fighting for my community, or should I be home teaching my children? I think the biggest thing somebody ever said to me is, like, the most important thing you can do is raise good people. And I was like, that's my passion. That's my purpose. I got to raise 3 genuinely good people in this world. I want them to make a difference in this world the same way my father and my mother probably look at me. And if I was in the house more, I wouldn't have to worry about what these schools are teaching my kids. I would teach them, and they would be much stronger for that. But because today's society requires 2 people to make money and to survive and things like that, it makes it a little bit harder. Because today I feel like sometimes when we're being pushed as women to go into entrepreneurship and things like that, it's a double-edged sword. Because if I'm not in the house, who's taking care of my children, right? Someone has to be there to take care of them. Someone has to be there to grow them. And I'm depending on people I don't know who don't care about them to raise my children. And that's the hardest thing. We have to be there. And that's why I say I struggle with that whole feminist shit, because it's like, yeah, I hear you. And yeah, I get the point. But there's a reason why we have roles. Look what's happened. Look what's happened to our families. Look what's happened to our children. Look what's happened to the food we eat. I don't think people understand that. The reason why we eat the food that we eat, the processed foods, because women are not in the household. It's not to say we have to be there. I need the option to do what I want to do. But it's a reason God created us to do those things. There's certain things that women can do and men can't do. One thing is I can create life. You can't do that. And there's a responsibility that comes with that, and we have to be there for that. And that, to me, is the most crucial missing element to why our community, or anybody, just the population as a whole, is just really missing.
I really strongly believe that entrepreneurship is a vehicle for which we can create economic development on our own. And I work with a lot of women-owned businesses. I think about today, I have no children, but if I happen to, I'm of childbearing age, I suppose. And no, but really, but if I were to have a baby, but I do feel like the beautiful part about entrepreneurship is that we can raise our families in a different way. I mean, for Black people, and for my family specifically, like understanding that we have the ability to generate wealth, and watching my mom even do things like sell Mary Kay, that in itself was a beautiful example for me. Yes, she as a single mother was fully leading our household, but she was engaging in wealth creation in a creative way that inspired me, and probably has a lot to do with what I'm doing today. So I think that, and also, like, full disclosure, like, I'm dating someone who is a man and loves to cook. And so like I'm super traditional, but I also feel like there's a beautiful fluidity and flexibility with gender roles that if both people are honest about what they need, we can achieve beautiful things. Also, like, again, do not have a family. But so I think that women can play both roles. And I think entrepreneurship doesn't have to be one or the other. And it could be part-time. It could be flexible. If I had a baby today, a homegirl would be in the seed law community, or boy, would be in the seed law community office hours, just like I watched you, Nia, at Blue Hills, bring your baby along. Like
I was nursing a baby in a meeting.
But how beautiful is that?
I was nursing. It was 2 weeks after I had my last child. I was literally in a meeting going off nursing a child.
But it was so beautiful because
real.
like, who are your kids going to be as it relates to the reality of economic development and their ability to actually affect change? I think that there's just a beautiful mix.
What part of your life story has meant the most to you, has impacted you the most, has carried the most meaning in your life? And I would ask, for the sake of time, a minute. I didn't put a minute on. Someone told like a 20-minute life story, which is cool. But we trying to eat.
Literally and figuratively.
I'll say my grandmother's couch. My grandmother, 46 and Olive, hated white people, loved Jewish people. And oh yeah. It was when I sat on her couch, you get the life reset, right? You get to tear down these walls of what you think is real, what they tell you is real, and get back to who you are. And that's, the history of who you are. That's the history of your people in this city. That's the history of your people in this country, and the appreciation of it, and kind of getting the reset, because you can get gassed up by these accolades and by these achievements and all these types of things, right? Generally, they don't come from us. Hey. Right? No, but also when you're down, it picks you up. You know what I mean? When you're down, you get that, that love that you need. And so that, for me, that was it. It was my grandmother sitting on her couch and my grandmother in Little Rock, and she used to call me old man because I used to get up before everybody and eat cereal. So that's it. All right.
I'm gonna hit my super fast. I promise it'll be economical in time. Mine was in 2015. I moved to Argentina for a year and taught English there, did some research, and I lived with a family when I was there. And it was that community. I lived in Mendoza, Argentina, and it was that community's first experience with an American, right? And so I remember sitting at the table. We had lunch and dinner together every night together as a family when I lived with them for an entire year, every day, didn't miss. And they made a comment one day. They're like, it's not even that you're the first American we've ever met. It's that you're the first black man we've ever met. And so you're the only exemplar we have. And we had all these like stereotypes when we see the movies and we see the media, because in Argentina, they show U.S. news first, world news second, and then local news. It's just fascinating, right? That American culture, U.S. culture has that much power. And like a negative way for me, it actually gives me like a triggering reaction. I don't like that at all, but I noticed that. And so they see, a lot of movies of just like, black people being negatively portrayed. And they're like, but you don't comport that way at all. And you changed our entire like narrative in terms of how we look at a black man. That put me in like a position of like, that's a lot of pressure. Cause I can't fuck up, right? Cause like they told me, I did my job. I was like, man, we still got 5 months left in this trip, and you telling me I'm the only exemplar you got? I was like, man, I can't make no mistakes. It was good. It felt good to have them say that, but it also put that pressure of like, I can't really make a mistake because this is all they got, and they'll take that with them for years. As much as they've impacted my life, I've impacted theirs, and so that was probably the most important thing, most impactful moment for my life.
No, it was when I came out of college. I didn't have a job set up and met a white guy. My dad had set me up, and basically for $5,000, he teach me how to interview, get a job, and navigate the corporate world. And I learned from him that there's always a world within the world that's going on, no matter what the media says, the news says. and that if you can navigate that world, you'll always be okay. So, it cost me $5,000, but it's carried me this far. So,
Take us home now.
Am I the last one?
Nah, Nia.
Yeah, okay. Nia will wrap it up.
P-Rob, they last. I got 2 more.
She got it.
She's got a mic drop prepared.
She need to marinate.
Think about it. Think about it.
We ain't got much time.
When I think about the experiences that have impacted me the most in my life that I can share in 1 minute, I will share about the first entrepreneur that I really worked for, where I realized, like, oh shit, entrepreneurship is a thing, because my parents were employees. So after my mom got her master's and we were living in Illinois, she got a job in Indianola, Iowa, middle of nowhere, 15 miles south of Des Moines, where I was the only black girl in my high school, and she was working at Simpson College. Always been a hustler, so I had several jobs even in high school, and I worked for this gentleman named Ben Carpenter, and he owned the local health food store and ice cream shop. So I already thought that was strategic, right? Fatten them up, then we make them healthy. I like the way this works. Right. Your portfolio has got to be diverse. But what I realized in that job, I worked at the ice cream shop, I worked at the health food store, and I also babysat his kids in the house that he built by hand for his wife. So I realized, like, oh my gosh, and it was a white dude, and from graduating high school to the opening of the doors of his first business, he said was 6 months. Because at that point, I'm asking questions like, whoa, bro, how are you doing this? Like, my mom is going through, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. So we're going to get all these degrees, and here you are fresh out of high school, opening a business, and you're apparently making enough money to pay me and build a home. So that was my first, I think, paradigm shift, that entrepreneurship was a thing, that as individuals, we have the opportunity to create wealth on our own and generate wealth. And so I would say that was really my first foray into the entrepreneurial lifestyle, which helped me realize that I too could live that life.
Boom.
You're out of time.
Purpose.
You're out of time.
Okay, so I was thinking about this a little bit. So, my name is Nia. It means purpose. I'm probably the only person in this room that celebrates Kwanzaa. In fact, my family is the reason why we have a Kwanzaa celebration every year in Kansas City. But when it came to purpose and realizing that, purpose and power. And I hope Adrienne doesn't mind me telling this, but when I realized the importance of my position and my power, I'm the youngest board chair to sit at the helm of a community development corporation in Kansas City. And that was a fight within itself. But the moment I had to fight for someone, and I had to fight for Adrienne in the organization, to not only for someone who came in, who helped build something, and then be told that, well, we got this grant now, so we're going to put your position out for anyone to come and apply for, and then to let someone come in who did not qualify to interview against her, I raised all hell. But I went to bat for her because I realized how important she was to the organization. I realized how important she was as a black face in a black community for a CDC that serves black people, that she has to be seen, especially when there was so much criticism about the organization and the poverty pimping that people would say, and the fact that there were people who didn't look like them running something. And I would bring that up all the time. And there came a point where I saw that it was just so much, and I felt like they had ripped you apart to some degree. And when it came time to really say, well, let's just try to negotiate something, let's try to keep Adrienne on and do something, I was in the background saying, nope, let her go, because she can't grow here. She can't be who she needs to be here. Adrienne has wings and she flies, and I'm so happy I did that. So happy. I said, let her go. She stayed for a while, but I said, let her go. And to see you on the cover of the Business Journal on the Power 100 is one of the few. Man, you was the only black woman I saw in there. I was so proud to say, that's what's up. You did that. You did that. You did that. I might have said, let it go, but you did that.
And that is the beauty of community. Right there.
Mic drop that. Let's eat.
Thank you, Nia. Thank you.
everybody? Y'all want to eat? I do. Let's eat. So today, we got a little shrimp and fried fish and grits today. Something, actually, it's my first time actually doing today. Okay, so it's a little Cajun gravy that I made with some red wine in there, actually. So just some red peppers, onions, a little basil, milk, chicken stock, and some red wine. Even if I fail, I can always say, at least I tried. And anything that I ever tried, as long as I tried, it don't matter if I fail, at least I tried.
I had that feeling of like worthiness, you know, like is what I'm doing, like, does it matter? Is it important, you know? I'm curious, man, have you ever had a feeling like that, man? And you know, if so, you know, how have you battled from it? You know?
Yeah, all the time, man. It's because, you know, I'm still young, so I always have those thoughts of like, is everything I'm doing really mapped out? Like, am I really doing it the right way? And I like to, you know, keep my head on straight and keep looking forward and not try to have those thoughts. But it's often times where I feel like stagnant and I'm like, oh, you know, it's something else new that I should be doing and something else that I can be doing. I always like to try new food things. You know, that my dinner party next month is the first dinner party I'm ever trying. And that's the first time I'm doing something like this, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. And it's something new for me, for my team, for my event organizer. It's something new for all of us.
Mr. Grits himself.
Graham and Dunn. Nah, Chef J.
How you feeling, Chef?
Feeling good. How you feeling today?
I always feel good after the meal. That's
good.
You're undefeated, man.
Thank you.
You're undefeated, legendary.
Thank you.
We gotta find a way to plug in with some
Get them in the budget.
I think we can get him
Put him in the budget.
I got
Frank.
ideas cooking.
Yeah.
Put the man in the
Let's
budget.
do it. Let's make it happen.
We got it.
Let's make it happen.
So fucking intentional. I loved it.
Catfish,
Worked out right in there.
That's what it's simmering.
With the gravy, break the gravy down again, man. I don't think everyone
Don't do
cut.
too much, 'cause you own that.
You don't want to reveal all the.
I'll just tell you a little bit what was in it. It was just chicken stock, milk, and red wine. That's all I'm gonna tell you that was in it.
Some red wine.
Red wine.
That's what a wine wins.
That's it. But that's all
I was
I'm
upset,
saying.
but I'm
That's what
okay.
saying. A little bit of in love, of course, love.
So this last segment
Thank you.
is called Innovators Toolbox, and essentially what we'll do is we'll just go around the room and just share one piece of advice, one reflection from the conversation that you would leave in this Innovators Toolbox to improve the experiences of tomorrow's generation. As an example, Pat Rob had to run early, but he said explore your potential. You know, push the limits, see what you're capable of. So it can be kind of lighthearted, big idea. It could be very focused. Yeah, whatever you choose. You were shaking your head like, don't start with you. You want to start over here? Oh.
Let's go in that direction.
Yes, that's why I was. You was reading my mind.
Do I have to only say one? Because as an innovator, I don't like to.
You don't like to be bound. Only one might make it on the paper, but you can say as many as you would like.
I took notes, everyone. I don't do rules really. Don't be.
She choreographs her own thing, man.
Hello, I'm doing my own ballet here. I was on a dance team. Sorry. For the innovators. So I'm a definition gal. So as I watched some previous episodes and I thought about what I wanted to share here, I wrote down the definition, the most recent definition of innovation that I've read. Do you mind if I share?
Absolutely.
Okay, so innovation is when new or improved ideas, products, services, tech, or processes create market demand or solutions to economic, social, and environmental challenges. So if I'm talking to someone who is working on economic, social, and environmental challenges, I really wrote 3 things. You can cut and paste how you feel you want to. But someone told me the other day just like the importance of believing something into existence. And I like that, except I think it's about believing things into execution. I really like what Frank said before, like I get things done. And then I just thought about my own journey of innovation, and the concept of fear came up a little bit today. And I think that fear can either motivate or paralyze. And I think we have to make that decision several times a day, often. And so I would encourage my fellow innovators to think about that. And then, as we talked about before the episode began, Startup Communities was on the table, book by Brad Feld, and it talks about making a 20-year commitment to your community every day. So it's not just my commitment to Kansas City for the next 20 years, but it's a commitment that I make every day to sustainable business, transferable wealth. So I would say make your 20-year commitment and make it something that's worth committing to for 20 years. And that also will allow you to grow and expand as your passion does. So that's a lot at once, but to my fellow innovators out there, which I don't know if I would have called myself quite that before the Innovator in Residence Fellowship, but it's our job to see things that don't quite exist yet and to connect those dots. So also be fearless. There's no wrong answers here. We get the opportunity to create our own story and our own set and our own world, and also to figure out who we want to be in that space.
Amazing. That was great.
It's a tough act to
Yeah,
follow.
that's
she had notes.
shoot for the stars, Adam.
She cheated. Wow, the mic is actually bolted down, so thank God, because that mug was going through the ground. Otherwise, for me, I'm gonna rip off of one that I acquired through working at Teach for America that resonates with me well, and that is expect and accept non-closure. And what I mean by that is that, number one, in terms of your growth, it's perpetual. You're never done growing, and you need to constantly be tweaking and augmenting and reiterating your process of how you want to get better. That's perpetual, never ends. So there's no closure to that loop either. And whatever the mission is that you're pursuing is not going to see it's not going to bear its fruit likely in your lifetime. And so you need to train up the class behind you to carry that mantle long after you were done. So I think that's important as well. And so those two things married together, expect and accept non-closure, gives you a realistic path of where you know, like, all right, I can get this far, and then I'm going to pass it on to somebody else, and they're going to take it even further than I did. And I think that's kind of what I want to leave in the toolbox for today.
I would say living begins at the end of your comfort zone. That's the only way you grow. That's the only way you change, because you have no choice but to change. And then to know your why, because that's what gets you through the change.
Dan the man.
I don't know if y'all know Frank White.
Do more of what makes you happy.
Very simply, the word I try to live by and walk by is integrity. And in my definition, there are a million definitions. Just do what you say you're gonna do. A lot of people talk. A lot of people don't do. A lot of people pretend. A lot of people aren't true. And for me, be authentic. You know, if you say you're gonna do, if you say you're gonna change that light bulb, change the light bulb, man. If you're gonna change the world and you say that, change the world. Do what you say you're gonna do. It's very simple. And that's a blue collar approach to all this. And it's maybe too simple.
It's tried and true, man.
Yeah, but just do what you say you're gonna do. That's it.
That's been the thing for me, dude. Is doing what I said I was gonna do when I said I was gonna do it. Has opened so many doors. Chef J.
I would just say embrace your space. Simple as that. Wherever you are at in life at the time period, embrace it. Whether you're struggling, whether you're high, just embrace that space. Not high as in, you know, that, but high as in on a high. Yeah.
That was so much pressure. I mean, like, I had like a lot of stuff, you know, love you, trust God, find your purpose, be great. But I think the one thing that's always stuck out to me, I had a friend that I met in the Virgin Islands, and when she was in, oh man, I can't remember where she was exactly overseas, but she sent me this little keychain trinket, and it said, well-behaved women really make history. And she said, this is you. You are not a well-behaved woman, but I know you're going to go down in history. So I live by that motto.
Well-behaved women never make history.
Rarely make history.
Rarely make history.
I say never, but you could say rarely.
Give people the resources you wish you had.
I'll share a piece of vulnerable information. So each week I try to just reflect and watch the episodes and see how we can make them better. And this morning, this day was probably the toughest one, which I've realized oftentimes means that like something great is about to happen. But I was really just overwhelmed with this feeling of like, does any of this matter? Like, does it matter? You know, will it make an impact? Will it move anybody? And I was reminded when we got here that like all of you chose to be here, and I'm so humbled by it and grateful for it. And like, that's what matters in any scope of life, is like the people who are present and who are with you. That's what matters. And we so often like turn to like everyone else, and we neglect, you know, the people who have given us their presence and their time and their energy. So I don't know how to sum that up, but I'll say like, be present with the people that are present. I'll say that. They say that there are 3 levels of conversation. Level 1 is when people talk about other people. Level 2 is when people talk about events. There's nothing wrong with either of those, but this is Level 3 Studio. Level 3 is when people talk about ideas and what is possible. Welcome to Level 3 Studio, aka the Innovator's Oasis, aka Chef Jay's Kitchen, where we feed your body, feed your mind, without a doubt, feed your soul.
Hey!